I want everybody to be happy on Christmas Eve. Tonight, Santa Claus comes. He takes his big bag of toys and slides down the chimney. We're talking Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. Hit it. It was 1978. Ruffle belts were in. Hungry Hungry Hippos was one of the hottest games. The Volkswagen Beetle stopped production, and the Sesame Street gang experienced a great Christmas Eve. I'm your host, Jerry D., with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me are not one, but two Totally Rad Christmas All-Stars. The first is the host of the way cool Jingle Jank podcast, Scott Newman. The second you'll know as one of the L's of Tis the Podcast, Anthony Caruso. Guys, how's it going?
I'll let Anthony go first.
Hey, it's great to be back, Jerry. Thanks for having me back. Every time we record, I think it's going to be my last episode because I'm sure I pissed you off, and then I get another invite.
No, it takes a lot to make me upset, so no worries.
Thank you for having me, Jerry. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast with more than one host, so this is new territory for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we'll just, it's fun. We just kind of talk and we'll see what happens. And if we talk over each other, I'll just edit it so that we don't.
All right, that sounds good.
You put more effort into it than we do at Tis the Podcast.
And I might keep that in even.
Yeah. I'm really excited to be on a podcast that I don't have to edit.
Yes, that was always my favorite part about being a guest on anything is I just show up and talk and then forget it until it airs.
Yeah, all I had to do to prepare is just watch Sesame Street.
You know, that if I could just do that every time, that would be a dream, honestly.
I didn't really have to prepare for this one. I've been watching Christmas Eve on Sesame Street since I was a wee lad.
Same here. This one was one that I remember being a big part of my childhood, and then they kind of stopped showing it for a while, and we lost touch with it. You know, we didn't own it on VHS or anything. VHS, look at me, on VHS or anything. And I didn't rediscover it again until like 5 or 6 years ago when my daughter started getting into Sesame Street. And I thought, oh yeah, there was that one that I always watched. So this one was really good. I love this one. It's so good.
Yeah, I didn't find this until 2012, and I bought it on iTunes.
Nice.
And yeah, just like you, I had lost touch with this for, 20, 25 years maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we had a version that had been taped off of PBS on a VHS tape, like a home version of it that was pretty crummy.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when I saw it, I think we tried to record it on a beta tape. And at the time, we were still new to the whole thing, and we couldn't. So we ended up not being able to record it. And oh well. I mean, we did our best to watch it whenever it was on, but that's about it.
Yeah, and my daughter is 8. She's never been into Sesame Street, and I keep trying to get her to enjoy this, and she doesn't. She'll sit there, she'll watch it with me, and she's humoring me. She's old enough to humor me now.
Yeah.
But she does not like it, and she gets bored.
I understand. That's how my daughter feels about Thundercats, especially now that they're on Hulu and we've been watching it. And, she'll sit there, and my son's like way into it, and she just kind of sits there like, okay.
Yeah, you had to be there. You had to be there at the time for Thundercats to understand how groundbreaking it was.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Anthony knows. I mean, we were talking Rankin Bass the other day, and he's a big Rankin Bass fan as well. And
huge Rankin Bass fan.
And yeah, I mean, the whole style and the animation, and it was like sci-fi fantasy and in this cartoon world, but it was smart, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I loved it I saw the very first episode aired on television, and I was a huge fan. But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
No.
Don't let me take you down Thundercat's lane here.
Well, like I always say, it's not a podcast until you go on some tangents.
That's very true.
Well, Anthony, what's your history or your experience with Christmas Eve and Sesame Street?
So I was a huge fan of Sesame Street growing up. I was in the Elmo years.
He's a youngin'.
Yeah, he's a youngin'. He doesn't even know who Mr. Hooper was.
Oh, I know Mr. Hooper. I remember seeing that. I remember seeing the episode where he passed away very early.
That was
okay. All right, I remember that too. So
that one was
can't
brutal,
be that young.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever saw this as a kid though. Like I said on Tis a Podcast when we covered this, I knew it was out there, but I don't remember ever seeing it. Then when we watched it for that show earlier this year, as soon as it opens up with the people in full costume skating, I'm like, I've seen this before. But it had been years. I remember bits and pieces, not the whole thing. And when I watched it for our show, I ended up loving it. So this is definitely going into my yearly rotation. Like, it's just so good. It's so good. So much heart.
It is, yeah. There were several moments watching it again, and this time I sat down and watched it with all my children, and it was. I mean, I almost teared up a couple of places, which I hate to admit on on a podcast here, but
Did you tear up when Bert gave away his paperclip collection?
Yep.
Is that when you teared up?
There's no shame here, Jerry. It's all right. This is a safe space. You can talk about how you felt when you watched the Sesame Street.
We'll take the Mr. Rogers route, and we'll talk about our feelings. And so I mean, it was one of those things where just and then when Mr. Hooper comes, and we'll get into it, but when Mr. Hooper comes and gives them their presents, it was like, oh, it got me. Just my kids and wondering if they would grow up to be that kind. And, I mean, it was one of those moments.
Don't give away the breakfast yet, Jerry. We haven't even had coffee yet. Come on, man. But what's weird is I had a little bit of a different experience when I went and rewatched this in preparation for today. It is very different to watch something that you know and love with a pencil and paper in your hand and watch it critically and take notes. And I started noticing things that I've never seen before, or at least never noticed before. And I've probably seen this 30, 40 times in my life. So we'll get into it today. And then there's plenty of singing in here. So there was ample time to go and start doing research on, well, who is that character? And did that person do anything else? So I am armed with a little bit of knowledge today.
Ooh, that's what I love.
So watching it critically with a pen and paper, did it not ruin it for you, but did it, what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I absolutely understand what you're trying to say. It was not as enjoyable because I was starting to see flaws and strange things I'd never noticed before. Like, doesn't this little girl have parents? Like Gordon's obviously not her parents.
I did wonder that. Yeah.
There's no cell phones at the time. Like, shouldn't the police be out looking for her? And it was stuff like that you lose a little bit of the magic when you look too closely. And I don't want to do that again. I'm very excited to do this with you guys tonight and have fun talking about it. But the next time I watch this, and it will be sometime this season, I'm just going to enjoy it again.
Yeah. I did notice that. And I think part of that was just because it was a different time, It was, you could just go out and stay at your friend's house, stay out playing with friends, but, just be back when the porch light come on.
The street lights were on.
Street lights are on,
Yeah, this is the same era where we didn't wear seatbelts and we would run back and forth in the back seat of the car.
Pretty much, yeah.
I know that watching Rankin Bass with the critical eye is what did Tom in with those specials, Jerry, because if you go all the way back to year one of our show, he was so excited to do Rudolph.
He was,
And then he sat down with a pen and paper. It was like, ugh. And it just ruined it for him, and I felt so bad for
that. Well, see, and those, and again, we'll get back to Sesame Street in a bit, but those are some that I've seen so many times that even seeing them critically doesn't bother me. Just, I have the memory like seared into my brain of
right, like everything. There's enough nostalgia for those, watching it critically,
and that's kind of how I feel about Sesame Street as well. It's the same thing. It just it's so good, and there are some flaws, but at the same time, it's got that typical Muppet style writing that's just smart and funny, but also geared towards that certain age development. That it makes it great, and I definitely I couldn't do it, and so I kind of have to really give them their lauds for that. I mean, there's no way I could write something so smart for kids.
I mean, and heartfelt. Again, it's the heart that comes with the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed how grimy Sesame Street looked.
What's New York? But
but it's really grimy. It's like I wouldn't let my kids play there.
No.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like this special supposedly gives away where Sesame Street's supposed to be. If you look at the subway stop now, judging based on the subway line they're taking and where they take it, and I know they didn't do their research given how grimy it was. But according to the special, it's near Park Avenue. And I'm like, that's not Park Avenue.
That's not Park Avenue.
That's not Park Avenue.
It's the 86th Street station, I believe.
Yep. Yep. And it's like the A, B, and C line. Yep.
See, I know nothing about New York except from what I hear or what I've seen on TV and what I hear on Christmas Time in the City podcast and what you mentioned on your show. So I don't really know anything at all about New York firsthand, even though my brother lives there and I've never been. But I mean, to me, it seems more like a Hell's Kitchen kind of a place, like I expect Daredevil to come and fight like one of those monsters or something. But
well, to pull one of my favorite shows, The Office. When Dwight's referred to Sesame Street, isn't that the one with all the Muppets in the barrio?
In the barrio, yeah. Well, yeah, you can say that too. But I guess we can really just get into the plot now. If we want to nutshell it, essentially, there's a Big Bird. It kind of has some doubts about Christmas due to Oscar the Grouch, and then of course we have some subplots in there. But that's the main plot. There is how does Santa Claus come down the chimney, and Big Bird kind of freaks out about it. Yeah. And
Oscar the Grouch plants those doubts after going on what I can only assume is the most swear-filled tirade, judging from all the subway sounds, leaping him out.
I was telling Anthony, it kind of made me, so on Saturday Night Live, was it a year or two ago, they did a sketch with David Harbour when he was the host, where he was supposed to be Oscar the Grouch, and it was like a dark and gritty, like Joker kind of a thing. When he was Oscar the Grouch and he puts on the makeup and everything, covers himself in trash. And he's a trash man. Anyway, but it that little bit right there kind of made me want to see a whole movie of David Harbour as Oscar the Grouch. I wanted to see that movie.
Yeah, I found Oscar to be a little darker than I remembered.
Same here, yeah. I mean, I know he always said things like scram and, get lost. But here he was almost like spiteful. And
yeah, he was mean. And for our nutshell here, it's not just that he plants a seed of doubt. He does it in a very spiteful way. And it's almost like he's leading. He says, how does Santa Claus get down that tiny little chimney when he's so fat? And that's not the exact intonation of his voice, but it's kind of similar to that.
That was very close, yeah.
He didn't push it all the way, though. He didn't come flat out and ruin
dispute the legend of the disbursement of toys, right?
I love that.
But I feel like you need him to be that for the Linus Hart moment at the end, where he feels bad and he's like, well, I gotta help find him now. And
yes, and remind me of that, because we're going to get to my least favorite line in here. Spoiler alert. So Jerry, why don't you start off here before I get all mad? I'm mad at Oscar the Grouch.
Oh no, okay. So it starts off, and at first I did not remember this beginning. I remembered most of the special, but I didn't remember the beginning, where they're actually like the Muppets, the Sesame Street gang, which I guess they're Muppets still, but they're ice skating. And I didn't remember them ice skating for some reason. But when I saw them, I mean, it looks odd because obviously they're what is the Holidays on Ice people, I believe, that are doing it. And they got the big Muppet heads on them. And it just, it's Bert and Ernie and Cookie and, the Count. I love that the Count was there. That made me really happy.
The Count used to be my favorite as a kid. Like my favorite. When my cousin went out to LA, my parents couldn't find like a toy count for me anywhere for some reason. And my cousin found one in the airport, like a stuffed one, and he brought it home, and like that was my favorite toy for the longest time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird to see the Sesame Street characters, the puppets, their feet, because you don't normally see anything from the waist down because they're, puppets. So it was odd to see them, in full form. It was almost anthropomorphic or something in there. And so here's the first thing that I noticed. Why is there a tree in the middle of the ice skating rink?
Well, that's how you know it's not like Park Avenue or real New York City, because they're not skating there at Rockefeller Center or Central Park or anything.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
What, did they put the tree there to hide the hole in the ice or something?
But like, so seeing the feet for me really dated this special, right? Because if you watch the newer Muppet movies, like the ones with Jason Segel and Ricky Gervais and everything. Mm-hmm. They're clearly, whenever you do see their feet every now and then, it's clearly not an actor. You have enough special effects to make it look real.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And that dated this for me. Like, I was telling Jerry before you hopped on, Scott, when you see Oscars walking, that creeps me out. It reminds me of Alf, whenever you saw Alf's full body walking, like, and it's clearly a person inside of that Muppet. It, like, creeps
You're
me
right.
out.
He is Green Alf. You're right.
Well, I think Alf's a bit more witty, but yeah.
Well,
but
a little more adult.
For sure. But it's all ADR, it's all just voiceover stuff. And of course it's the voice actors doing it, but it's just filmed from, it's one of, what do they call, the wide shot? It's just way out there, and so you can see all the cool skating tricks, and they play what's it called, Crack the Whip and all that.
Yeah, but before they do that, Jerry, they have Big Bird skating with a little girl, and she's extremely young. She looks to be like maybe 5 or 6 years old, and she's a great skater. And if I remember correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, this was when they played Feliz Navidad.
Yes.
So this was their big spend of the show. I don't know how PBS afford that. Maybe it just wasn't a popular song then. But they do this. They do a skating thing, and it's pretty weird to see Big Bird on ice skates, because Big Bird is weird to start with.
Yes.
Like, how tall is Big Bird? Like 7-8 feet tall?
Something like that. Yeah, he's big.
I mean, he was big. He was big enough. Here's my dark story of the night. He was big enough where he couldn't fit into the Challenger shuttle. They were going to send him up into space with the teacher and all those astronauts, and that's the one that exploded.
Wow.
But when they tried to see if the costume could fit in, he didn't. Thank God for the psyches of a million little kids out there. But
that would have been worse.
Oh,
to see him
just
go
yellow
after
feathers raining down on the beach. That would have been horrible.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, it's funny because, and I'm sorry to interrupt here, but
I'm sorry.
it's funny because when they were first started skating, and it's actually like a nice little just instrumental. It's a nice slow version of it, do 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 do. And I remember hearing it, thinking, that sounds like Feliz Navidad. And then they went to the next line. It's like, yeah, that really does sound like it. And of course, they get through a whole little section of it, and then all of a sudden the music starts, and it's like, that was Feliz Navidad. I mean,
but it starts off as Big Bird can't even skate; he can barely even keep upright on the ice, and by the end of the song, he's skating around like a pro. So he's a super fast learner. Yeah, that's what it does.
I have to say, if you want,
everybody in South Texas is we're all great skaters because no, I know what you mean. It is kind of weird, and I guess it's just the magic of Christmas and the little.
Well, you're supposed to forget. It's you're supposed to be just dissolve into the thing and what is it? Withhold disbelief.
Right.
That's the problem with holding a pen and paper and trying to do this, is that you stop suspending disbelief. So you look at it and go, well, what's the deal here? Can he skate or can he not skate? That's the stuff that kind of takes away for it. So no, it didn't ruin it, but I'm definitely casting a critical eye on this.
Yeah. It was a neat little skating scene.
Oh, you think so? I was about to say, like, this opening scene dragged it felt like it went on forever. Like, I was so happy when Oscar went tumbling down the stairs and we got out of there.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he tumbled down like 20 flights of stairs and went through a wall. Like, where was this ice skating rink?
You know, that
Yeah,
can
and
is
it's pretty funny
pretty
too.
protective.
When you look at the wall is about a half an inch thick.
Yeah.
And little kids don't care, but I'm looking at it as a homeowner, like, well, gee, glad my wall isn't, half-inch sheetrock.
And trivia about that, he had a different line when they asked
I
him if
have
he's
that
okay.
note here too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I went back and I watched it, and his mouth movement, even though it's puppetry, it is completely
It's
different. You
different,
can tell that it is a different line. Do you want to read what the line was, or do you want me to do it?
If you have the exact quote, you do it, because I only have the paraphrase.
Okay, I have it here from IMDb. It says, when Big Bird and Patty check on Oscar following his ice skating accident, Oscar's original line was, "Sure, I've been thrown out of better places than that." It was later redubbed in post-production to, "Let's go back and do it again," because John Stone, the director, considered the original joke too adult-focused.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it was. That was a good call on John Stone's part.
Yeah. It's a good line.
So funny, though.
It's a good line.
Like that line, I feel, was more for the Muppets proper than the Sesame Street Muppets.
Yeah, the Muppets you can get away with a lot more. I mean, their Muppet Show itself was a lot more adult than Sesame Street, so makes sense.
Yeah, so they do the crack, and we kind of glossed over it, Jerry. They do crack the whip, and Oscar is on the end. They let go, he lets go, and he ends up flying through the wall and down, what appears to be many, many flights of stairs, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I don't know a lot about New York City, but do they put an ice skating rink on the 13th floor?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think they would always be afraid it's going to leak down and destroy that whole building.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna defer to you on that one, Anthony. But common sense says probably not.
Yeah. So then they're outside, and this begins the. Is it supposed to be New York City, or do they keep it intentionally vague?
I think it's supposed to be vague.
It's supposed to be.
Okay, but that's what I thought too. It's never mentioned.
Right.
It's just Sesame Street. It's Anytown, USA, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's out. They're walking outside, and I don't know if this was just a set dressing or what, but they make it look pretty dirty. The walls are not clean.
Yeah,
and
they do.
It looks like you're walking through not
grimy,
the greatest section of town.
It looks like you're walking through modern day Harlem.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to be pleasant and polite, but yeah, you're exactly right. It's a little sketchy looking.
Yeah.
What year was this, Jerry? Was this 79?
This was 78. Yeah.
Yeah, this is 78. So this is back when New York was still very crime ridden and a lot more
before whoever the mayor was cleaned up Times Square and all that.
Yeah, exactly. This was back when, you had a lot of streetwalkers and just a lot of mob violence and stuff. So yeah. So if it's meant to be New York, it's probably a decent representation of what it looked like at the time.
Yeah. Well, it's a little gritty. We'll leave it at that. And they head for the subway station, and the subway station is equally gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
they still are.
Oh, and that's true. And they buy tokens, and did you notice they carried Oscar over the gate?
Yeah.
Did they pay for Oscar?
I hope so. Otherwise,
did you guys see this meme with Oscar? Oh, you can get a ticket for that.
Oh yeah.
There's this meme lately where they're going around Facebook with Oscar, speaking of him, where it's like the gang chips in to buy him a new house, and he's not used to the area, so you just see this large, amazing kitchen and the garbage can in the corner, and Oscar's eyes are poking out because he's just staying in the can when he has this whole huge house now. It's really funny.
Well, that was definitely not the case in this one.
That's a good bit, yeah.
But they get on the subway car, and the subway car is gross looking.
Yeah.
And that looks pretty true to form from what I remember 20 years ago of the subway in New York.
But that's when we get this great song, True Blue Miracle. And
yeah, it is a great song. And what's odd about that? That song's a banger, but I don't know about you guys, I don't hear it on the radio.
No.
I've never heard it outside the context of this show, even though it's a pretty great song.
It is a good song. I mean, it definitely is dated. Like, it's got the harmonic structure and everything of like typical late 70s, early 80s, adult contemporary kind of, music. So, I mean, it's definitely dated, but I like it. I like the words, everything about it. It's really cool. And of course, it's sung beautifully by Bob.
Did the original cast sing that?
I believe they did, actually.
Because it looks like it and it sounds like them.
Mm-hmm. I know they did do a lot of their own singing, but
Okay.
I wasn't able to find anything about that particular song. So
Well,
I'm just
go
going to
find the song "True Blue Miracle." It's a great song. And they buy I think Gordon buys a Christmas tree. They bring it on the subway.
Yep. You can see it there just laying on.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the kids are sitting there on the subway. Some of the kids that had been with the adults skating, they're still wearing their skates on their feet. That was a little weird to me.
I missed that.
I'm gonna say they have those little skate guards, like the blade guards that they can walk on, but it was weird.
It was a little weird to me that Gordon bought a tree and brought it on the subway. When you get to Sesame Street, you see they have a little Christmas tree lot later on.
Oh,
well, he wants a good tree. He doesn't want.
I thought you're supposed to buy local. Come on, Gordon.
Yeah.
Gordon. Oh man.
But on the subway, Oscar starts up again with the Santa Claus and how does he get down the chimney and
basically he tells Big Bird that there's no way Santa can come down because he's too big, and the chimneys that they have in their places in Sesame Street are just way too narrow and tiny, and if he can't fit in, then he can't deliver any presents.
Right.
And this, I appreciated this because they went a little younger, a little more kid-like in this, and
this isn't a Joseph Campbell thing here. This is
it's more like how does Santa do what he does, and that's the question Big Bird is trying to answer.
That's true. It was posed in a very specific way, but and we'll get to it later. There's the whole idea of, well, he's obviously done it in the past. And I don't know that as a kid, you do not think of that. As an adult, you're like, hey, wait a minute, come on here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, when someone asks you that question, you're in your own head, you're thinking, how does he? Oh no. I mean,
exactly.
You specifically,
you don't think about, well, he did it last year in the same chimney, so it must have worked.
Yeah.
And if they had resolved that anyway, we wouldn't even have a plot. So of course it works fine there. But is this the part where he, where Oscar is saying some sort of bad language and the subway sound overdoes it so you can't hear the words he's saying? I don't remember the context of it.
Yes, he calls him the stupidest bird I have ever met. You are so. Blah, 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 blah.
He says that he just tightens his belt essentially and kind of flies down. I think it's that one. It's either that one or the butter. I don't remember which one it is, but he does say. I think he tells him, yeah, I know how he gets down. He just tightens his big old belt and he can fit. And of course, that's when he says, you're the, well, I don't know exactly what he says, but it's not pretty.
Yeah. And he keeps saying ding dong, like something like ding dong, you're wrong. Well, wait a minute, Oscar. Like, how do you have the answers here?
I don't know, but he's a grouch. So everything's going to,
yeah, but he
kind of reminds me of House.
Big Bird.
Like,
go ahead.
Of Hugh Laurie as Dr. House a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got a House vibe to him. I don't know what it is. Just a curmudgeon in a trash can.
Yeah, but he gets Big Bird all up in a tizzy on this one. Like full-fledged. Big Bird is near panic on this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of great shots where he just mugs to the camera and you can see the fear in his eyes, like, oh no, kind of a thing.
There's a lot of great mugging this special, and we'll get to it later on, but Grover and Cookie Monster do some great mugging.
I love Grover and Cookie Monster.
And I was appreciating the skill of the puppeteers there, because I don't know how they move his actual his eyelids over his eyeballs and do all the other stuff while they're in the costume there. There's no way I could pull that off. Not a chance.
No, they're really skilled. But I do love, so I think this is where they, Big Bird's kind of freaking out. So he and the little girl go to talk to Kermit.
And that's Patty.
Patty, that's who it is. Yeah.
Patty, yep.
Yeah. He and Patty go talk to Kermit. And, Kermit's like, well, let's, he tries to think about it. And he's got that great, he thinks about it. He doesn't know what to say. And then, he's looking off in the distance and he says, well, let's look at it from another angle. And then he just kind of
he turns around. Yeah. And these are the days before. Go ahead.
I find the way they do Kermit on Sesame Street versus how they do him in the Muppets so different. Like, he's so much more, not cynical, but I guess he's more hopeful on the Muppets than he is on Sesame Street. He's more of an adult on Sesame Street.
He looked like a hand inside of a sock. Like, these are obviously the early days. I think they'd only been doing this for 5 or 6 years or something at this point, or maybe even less. I'm not sure. But the actual shape of Kermit's head is kind of rumpled, and I can almost see a hand inside of it. It's weird.
I know what you mean.
It's just a little weird.
Yeah, they did improve the puppetry later on. Yeah. But anyway, so he says, well, let's, who knows more about Santa than kids? So, but I love how he first poses the question, and they're like, elves?
Yeah. Macy's?
Macy's, yeah. And so they're going to go on a quest to interview a bunch of children, and, one of them, they got to have the answer. And so they'll get back to him.
Right.
And that leads to Grover's little bits, which are so funny whenever Grover is dealing with children. Whenever the Muppets in general deal with children, first of all, I like how these real life children just like coddle them like pets, like hug them, and as Grover's talking, just stroking his head, and like
it was
clearly
very
enamored
authentic.
by them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would have done the same thing if I had seen them when I was a kid. I would have been like,
Grover with these kids, specifically the little boy who they role play and Grover's being Santa, where he's talking about, how do I get out of the house? Go to the front door.
It's such a good bit.
The front door's locked. Go to the window. It's just so funny. And like just hearing kids' answers, like it's like kids say the darndest thing, right? Like this is how they actually think Santa operates. It's so cute.
Yeah, it was not heavily edited in any way. Felt very authentic.
Yeah.
Like one of those little kids was so stinking cute. The little girl, like she's maybe 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I even looked up the credits to see like, oh, this kid must have gone on to do great things, and I couldn't find anything. So I don't think so.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every single one of their answers was cute and adorable. And I mean, I could see my children saying something like that, especially my 4-year-old and well, my 2-year-old wouldn't know what's going on, but my 4-year-old, I could see him saying almost the exact same thing. And I was just waiting for someone to say magic, and no one ever says magic. That's it. That's like the ultimate get out of jail.
Yeah, it is. It is the answer. It's the schoolyard answer to it. He's magic. Boom.
Yeah,
that's it.
I mean, he
can't
is.
dispute it. You can't prove he's not magic. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But no one does. Lots of cute answers though.
Yeah, there were.
Oh, you know what it was? I'm sorry, Jerry. It was when Kermit is going over the answers with Patty and Big Bird.
Oh yeah, that's
back on the street, and like, let's see what we have here. Santa sneaks in with the relatives on Thanksgiving, and hides until Christmas, and Big Bird's like,
I don't think so.
Not. Yeah. It's just great. And I think I appreciated all that stuff more as a parent, because it's relevant to my life. And, how do you approach these answers and stuff?
The funny thing about that answer was not just that he hides until Christmas; he hides in the hamper.
In the hamper, in the laundry, yeah.
And for a second there, they think they have the answer, and I don't remember what it was. I'm drawing a blank.
See,
and it was, they had a pretty great, another mug to the camera there where they realized, like, wait a minute, that's probably not it. Like, Patty puts her head in her hands, and Big Bird's like, oh no, and it was great. They set up tension in the thing. Like, well, no, like we thought we were going to have the answer here, and we just don't. We're going to have to dig deeper.
Mm-hmm. And while this is all going on, we also get Bert and Ernie doing a Gift of the Magi type thing.
Yeah, and as a kid, of course, I did not know it was Gift of the Magi.
Yeah,
I didn't know it. I probably didn't know what that was until I was in my 30s. So.
Yeah, we don't know Henry.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's what makes it even more touching as a kid, because you don't have that literary background, to understand. You just see that your favorite characters are each giving up something that they really love in order to get something for the other one. So it's the sacrifice, and it just shows that the giving is better than the getting. Yeah. And, you kind of latch onto that, because I mean, if someone had told me, oh yeah, just like in that book, I wouldn't have cared.
No. Remember the Simpsons where they did the Christmas Carol with Mr. McGrew and Lisa and Bart's like, yeah, the writers have been milking that goat for years. Same thing with O. Henry here.
Pretty much, yeah. Yep, there's several of those. Christmas Carol.
Bert is sitting in the bathtub, and for some reason he doesn't notice that Rubber Ducky is in the bathtub, which was weird. Like all of a sudden he moves and it squeaks. He's like, what the heck was that? Well, I can guarantee you it was the Rubber Ducky. But he pulls the Rubber Ducky up, and I've never noticed how gnarly and nasty Rubber Ducky looked. Like all the paint's chipping off of his face, and it doesn't have the classic Rubber Ducky shape. It's like this odd, like craned neck thing. It was wigging me out when I
did notice that. Yeah, it's got a longer neck. It's a little bit more narrow, like thinner compared to most rubber ducks that you see, which has the shorter head, the shorter neck on it and the squattier head. And that was one thing I always thought was strange about his rubber duck, because I never found one that looked just like it.
No. If you came back from some antique fair or something and said, hey, I found a rubber duck from the 30s, I say, get that creepy thing away from me. But that's what I think it would look like.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I bet if somebody could get their hands on Ernie's rubber duck, the original, that thing would be worth a lot of money.
It should be in the Smithsonian, shouldn't it?
I would.
If it's not,
hope so. Yeah.
You would think. Yeah.
But anyway, it's gross.
But so he gets the idea that, hey, I'll get him a soap dish to put his
which
rubber
doesn't
ducky
make
on.
sense, because this is a clawfoot bathtub, or at least a standalone bathtub, and there's nowhere that you would set a soap dish.
No, not
it doesn't make like you're not going to put it on the water. That's not going to work.
No. So I guess it's just so that, I mean, even if it's on the floor, I guess it doesn't matter. Just so that there's some dedicated.
Yeah, exactly. Don't read too much into it. It's a soap dish. It's for Rubber Ducky. Let's move on. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then they have, but Ernie then is. They show Ernie come home and he's like, Bert, I'm home, and he finds one of Bert's paper clips, and I understand they're making a gag about how every paper clip looks almost identical, but they can tell this is like a 1956,
1957 Acme.
Acme, yeah.
The one he got at the convention. I forgot what the line was. But some office supplies convention or something.
Yeah, and he says like, "Oh, well, I just had a neato idea. I'll get him a cigar box so he'll never lose his paper clips again." And then he throws it over his shoulder, and I'd never noticed that before, and it made me laugh out loud.
Which again, it dates it because I think nowadays you just say I'd get him some sort of container or something, but a cigar box, like in particular, I mean. Yeah. Totally of its time, because I remember keeping trading cards and things in cigar boxes, and
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely of its time, but at the same time, it almost has a timeless feel, because, like you said, it is one of those stories that writers have been milking for years.
Yeah, and it's also it makes you feel really old too, because if you think about it, a 1956 paperclip was 22 years old when this was filmed. And now it's 70 some odd years old.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it'd be like kids today thinking about like right around 2000. Oh, that's a 2000s paperclip. That's old. Oh, shut
up. Stop talking, kid. Oh yeah. This reminds me, I don't know why, but it just reminded me of one of the answers that the kids gave was that he goes down the chimney with his reindeer.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, all of the reindeer go down with
together?
Them? Yeah. How do they get in? Tape his antlers.
And that's one of the moments Grover mugs the camera, which I love.
Oh yeah, it turns with that big nose. Yeah, that was great. It was a great shot. Yeah,
he gives a total office reaction shot.
Yeah. Doesn't he say? And there you have it.
And there you have it. That's exactly what he said. Yeah. Yep. True story.
So,
the Office, they took their whole premise from this episode.
Yeah. Obviously. Indisputable.
Yep.
So what happens right after this? Is this when they go to Mr. Hooper's store, or am I jumping ahead?
So I think this is when Bob comes home and he rehearses with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. I don't
think for preparation I would have written down all the scenes in order, but no, I didn't.
No, I didn't
wrote down the things that stuck out to me.
Keep Christmas if you all do the year, right? The song.
Oh, okay. It's time for my rant. I hated this song growing up. I absolutely hated this song because every time I'd get all bent out of shape. Quick backtrack. My mother loves Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. She was the one that had us watch it every year. It was a family thing. And this stupid song but when I'd start to get all bent out of shape about Christmas being over, my mom would try to be all sweet and she would sing this song and like it was supposed to make it better. It didn't. It made it worse. And I was so angry. And now I still don't like this song, like because it's about Christmas being over and that line and presents put away. I'm like, no, you don't put away the presents.
No,
it just
you keep playing with them.
Oh, this is visceral. I can feel it. It makes me so angry. I hate this song. But go on.
We used to keep the presents out under the tree until it was time to take the tree down. Like then that's when it would be like, okay, you need to find a place for your new toys.
Yeah, exactly. If it was up to me, they'd be out until April.
Yeah, exactly.
So now as adults we can if we wanted.
Although I can't. It's not my favorite.
But this song's your favorite?
It's not my favorite, but there's something so comforting about hearing Bob's voice singing that brought me back into childhood.
He had a nice voice. I liked it,
He does, yeah. And a key part of this scene that we didn't even mention here is that I don't know what Bob's girlfriend's name, the deaf woman is.
Linda.
So for some reason she is with all these kids in his apartment, which is a little weird, and she's teaching them to sign this song as a surprise to Bob. And Bob comes in and is surprised that Linda's there. So what that means to me is that all these kids would have been unattended in his apartment alone, which is just, that's wrong. So, okay, we'll move on from there. So he comes in and he says to Linda, like, hey, and he's signing it. And I believe she is legitimately deaf, right? They don't, so, yeah. Like that's not really something, even in 1978, you wouldn't have made that up. So he signs to her and says, hey, well, can you hang out and read a magazine while I practice with the
kids?
Read a
magazine,
no problem. Yeah. And that's the only sign language. No, it's read a magazine. She says, fine. And he starts playing the piano and all the kids start signing and then he's all touched by it. So it's supposed to be this very sweet scene. And it was nice.
So I have a story to tell.
Me liked it.
So to this day, on my birthday, my mother, as a child, she had a cassette tape for me. It was called Happy Birthday from Sesame Street, and it had a bunch of songs with all the characters singing it, including the Happy Birthday. So this day, when she calls me on my birthday, it's Big Bird and Cookie Monster and Oscar and everyone. She plays a thing for me on my voicemail, or if I answer, she'll play the whole 30-second Happy Birthday song with the Muppets singing it. So
that's really nice. It doesn't explain why you're dead inside and don't like this scene then. Like you should actually like this scene even more.
Oh man,
it's a little too saccharine sweet. It's a little too convenient.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it is. But it kind of, at the same time, as
and
an
it lacks the
adult now,
Muppets themselves.
It kind of reminds me of Scrooged and his weird rant at the end about if you love that feeling, you'll get greedy for it and you'll want it all through the year. And it's just like if Bill Murray. If that was said by anyone other than Bill Murray, this is what I picture it would sound like. It would be this song.
Yeah, and I ranted there about how I don't like the song, but I actually think that this whole idea of keeping Christmas with you all through the year would explain why in August and September, and now it's October, I'm recording with a Christmas podcast with you guys. I obviously took this to heart. So my mom was right. I'll call her tomorrow and tell her if she's right.
All right.
So do you think they got the title for the song, the concept for the song from A Christmas Carol? Isn't that what Scrooge says? Keep Christmas with you throughout the year?
I will keep Christmas,
yeah.
Throughout the year.
Could be.
I'd never put those two together, but yeah, you're right.
The next song is my favorite.
All right, so what happens after this scene?
So next
with the singing?
Right after this scene is with I believe this is with Mr. Hooper. I think that's the next part. I think even before the Cookie Monster part, I think it's where they go to Mr. Hooper to buy the presents.
Where poor
Bert and Ernie,
poor Bert can't even get out.
Well, so Ernie,
he's choking up so much. Well, he's asking to visit his paperclip.
Yeah, this is the continuation of the gift of the Magi here. So I believe Ernie comes in first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ernie comes in and he sees Mr. Hooper, and he says, "Hey, I'd like to trade you a rubber ducky for a soap dish." And
cigar box.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. He wants to trade rubber ducky for a cigar box for Bert. And, Mr. Hooper's like, are you sure about this? And he says, yeah. And he's obviously very sad. And then on his way out, he's got the cigar box behind his back because Bert is coming in.
Yep.
And Bert does the same song and dance. He says, but actually Bert's a lot funnier about it. Like, Mr. Hooper, I got a deal for you.
I've got a deal for you. Yeah.
Bert, the used car salesman. So he trades. And here's something I have in my notes. So Mr. Hooper has an empty cigar box. Was that an item for sale in his store? Like, isn't that just trash? Like, this reminds me, you go to Sam's Club and there are empty boxes. You just take one. Like, he could have just given it to Bert. Now, obviously, we wouldn't have a story there if that's the case, but it bothered me as an adult. Like, just give him the box, And, Bert, what is it? Ernie got something of value. He got a soap dish. I mean, that was like a whole 78 cents or something there. But Bert just took trash, or Ernie took trash. I don't get it. It just bothered me a lot. I'm mixing the characters up here, but I'm all in a tizzy about this.
I don't know. That's a really good point, and I never questioned it. It was just one of those things. I just watched. It was like, oh yeah, cigar box. Okay.
Yeah, so you could write the entire thing off and say, "Oh, well, Mr. Hooper was he was going to give the stuff back to them all along. Like there was never malice."
I was about to say, like, because I can't remember my feelings watching this as a kid, but obviously watching it as an adult, there's no way Mr. Hooper is not going to keep those things. He's going to bring them back to them. Yeah. But as kids, do either of y'all remember thinking like, oh my gosh, they're trading away their most beloved item?
I do remember thinking that, yeah.
I guess it's the point. I was hung up as an adult watching this because when I'm 44 now, Mr. Hooper died when I was growing up. When I was 6 years old, he died. And then 11 months later, I looked it up because I was like, oh, I actually remember this. I have very few memories of this age, but I was 6 years old because it was 1982. I looked it up and I was like, wow, I remember this. It was powerful. And I remember my mom like saying, hey, you need to watch this episode. And she didn't make too much of a deal of it. She kind of just put me in front of the TV and, let it run its course and kind of watched and see how I took the whole thing. And I don't know how kids today learn about death because this is how I learned about death.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And
yeah.
Me too.
Powerful.
Same. Mm-hmm.
So seeing Mr. Hooper, it was kind of a bummer. And then in that process of looking up what the date was, you find out that actor, I think he was like 78 or something when he died.
Yeah, it was around
He never
there.
had any kids and he was never married. And he obviously was this person who loved, kids and being part of Sesame Street. So it just kind of hit me in the feels when I read that and like, all right, well, thanks, Mr. Hooper,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all the kids that watched the show were his kids, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ooh, welcome to Bummer Talk with Jerry, Anthony, and Scott.
It's like Santa Claus. All the children of the world are his children.
Like Santa Claus the movie.
Like
My
Santa Claus
favorite
the movie,
Santa mythology. He couldn't have kids of his own, him and the missus, so they adopt the world's kids.
But
so you're saying Mr. Hooper is Santa, even though he's Jewish.
Yeah.
I like to threw that in. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas.
Oh, see, and I love that.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it was very classic.
Later on, we'll get to it. But Bert and Ernie say Merry Christmas to him, and I just wish they had said Happy Hanukkah because it would have felt more inclusive. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe that's modern Scott watching it, saying, "Oh, they should have done this right and not assumed everybody celebrates Christmas." But okay.
I always try my best, and it's really hard, but I try my best to watch. Whatever I'm watching, and whenever I cover these shows, to as I would if it was, if I was there in that time. And of course, a lot of times I watch it with today's standards in my head, and it's like, "Ooh, that's problematic," or "Ooh,
that was cringy." Very cringy.
But, I try my best as much as I can to think, well, okay, it was the '80s. I get it, And
if you're young today, you have no concept of this. Like I said, we ran around without seatbelts in the car. Our parents smoked with the windows rolled up in the car. It was a whole different time. Everything was very different.
It really was. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring down. We just had this beautiful moment talking about Mr. Hooper, so now I'm gonna go the opposite way. I love coming up right now. Oscar's song "I Hate Christmas."
Is that what comes next after this scene?
Well, actually, I think after this scene was when they do the scene that we talked about with Grover and the little boy about, you be Santa. And so I think that's actually
all right. So that's just another flashback to them interviewing kids.
Right.
Kind of a running thing. Okay.
And then it's Cookie Monster next, actually. Yeah. And him doing his
all right, so Anthony, put a pin in that one because you're thinking really important with that's one of the star moments of this one is Oscar's song.
I feel like Anthony identifies with Oscar the Grouch most.
He does.
Right now, at my current age, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Get off my lawn.
It's mine now. I'm keeping it.
Cookie Monster, Jerry, is my absolute favorite in this special.
I loved Cookie Monster. But he was never my favorite until I started watching Sesame Street with my kids.
Yep.
And my son and my daughter, they love when Cookie Monster interacts either with Ernie or with Kermit. And so we'll watch those over and over again because he is the funniest. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just his. He's a little bit naive. He's also, but at the same time, he's also a little cunning, which is like a weird dichotomy that he has there. Because sometimes he'll do what he can to trick Ernie out of his cookies.
Well, do you remember Follow That Bird, the theatrical
I do
Sesame Street
remember,
movie?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know how they all go looking for Big Bird and they pair up. I always loved that they put Cookie Monster and Oscar together in that car. And Cookie Monster throughout the movie is eating that car, and of course Oscar is being Oscar and getting so annoyed with him. I loved that dynamic.
Yeah, and if you're young, you've got to remember this is old school Cookie Monster. This is he never ate vegetables for us growing up. He never showed self-control about anything.
Nope.
He was all about eating cookies, and it was like a full-on greed thing.
And you can tell this is when they're starting to elongate his neck a tiny bit. So over time, he's gotten
weird.
Taller. When he first, if you look
like
at
a slug,
really old ones, yeah, he's like really
snail coming out of
squatty.
its shell or something.
Yeah, so I just assume he's growing. He's just growing up,
Yeah.
I guess. But
I think if I remember right, Jerry, this scene starts and Cookie Monster is writing a letter to
he's
Santa
writing his
Claus.
letter to Santa, and he's asking
And he's got
for
this giant pencil.
Please,
and, Dear Santa Claus. And
what me ask for?
Let me ask for. And he's naming cookies. You know, and it was
macaroons,
like,
and I think
coconut
raisins, and then it was even fortune cookies at one point.
Yeah, and he's got a line that I love here, and he hold on, I took a note of it, and I don't have it pulled up, but he's talking, figgy, delicious figgy Newtons, but he says like, I'll ask for 3 dozen oatmeal cookies, and he goes, what the hey, 4 dozen. And I just love that. Like, what the hey is something I say as an adult. And I just thought it was like a Northeastern thing because that's where I grew up. But I love that. That's not for kids. That was
Is this the same Cookie Monster scene where he finds out that...
But okay, so I have a quick aside here about this part with Cookie Monster. So as you said, Jerry, as an adult, I started liking this Cookie Monster character. I never really related to him growing up. But as an adult, I thought he was very funny. And, my mom's much older now, and she's a very, very thoughtful person. She's very generous. So she sees, and this is around 2010, 2012, whenever it was. She sees how much I like Cookie Monster. And she takes this to mean that everything that she gets me for the next 3 years should be Cookie Monster related. So I'm getting cakes, and I got a T-shirt. And I'm like, Mom, I'm 40 years old. I don't need a Cookie Monster T-shirt here. But she's just being, and she's not going to listen to this, thankfully. But, she was just being so thoughtful and trying to find something, like something I could relate to. And it was very sweet of her, but it took forever to break her of the Cookie Monster thing. Like, no. So now we're afraid to tell my mom we like things because, for fear that's all, my wife made the mistake of saying she liked a snowman ornament. Now we have so many snowman ornaments. We have a separate tree of them. This is the origin of my Cookie Monster problem for several years in my life.
I wouldn't mind a Cookie Monster shirt, but maybe not.
No. This was you wouldn't even take out the mail in this shirt. Trust me.
Gotcha. Oh man.
Okay,
yeah.
so Cookie Monster finishes the letter. I don't remember the scene that comes right after that.
So
but it's very clear. There are actually 3 separate scenes that are just like this. This is the very first one with just the pencil.
Yeah, it's 3 little vignettes there. The first, you're right. It's him writing his letter. He gets so hungry thinking about cookies, he eats his pencil and he doesn't realize it. And then it cuts to Kermit actually summing up all of those. Okay. All the responses, and in the end, they really don't know. They really don't know what it is they don't
Is this
know
the
how.
part where do they also have Snuffleupagus here, testing out the theory of putting all his feet into the oil barrel? There are a lot of oil barrels.
I think
on
it might
Sesame
be this
Street
part.
for some
Yeah.
reason.
And then he's like, how do I get out?
It's a great bit there. Yeah.
It's Snuffleupagus with a P, right? Not an F.
Well, I always thought it was Snuffleupagus with an F. But honestly,
I'll look that up while we continue here. It's not super important, but I think that's it. But his voice was creeping me out in this. It almost sounds like he's in like recording in a bathtub or something. I don't know if they put it in post or something.
Was this still the stage when they thought that he was still imaginary, or had he already been?
So I think this. Well, no, because the little girl can see him too, right? Not just Big Bird.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I just looked it up. We're both kind of right here.
Okay.
It's Snuffleupagus. So it's Snuffle, but it's not Snuffleupagus. It's Snuffleupagus.
Okay. Snuffleupagus.
So that was the part I was getting wrong. It is Snuffy with an F.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that part wrong, but the second half is upagus. So, I'm sure I had that wrong for the first 25 years of my life. Not that it came up much in my late 20s, but
yeah,
but no, I don't think this was the I don't think this was the era where where everybody could see him. I think he was always in. I thought he was in Big Bird's imagination, and kids could see him.
Yeah, kids could see him. That's
okay.
It's not
but
until 1985 when the adults actually see him. Yeah.
So, what was the reasoning behind that? It was something like not having imaginary friends, or not shaming people for something like that.
Probably.
What was it?
Yeah, there's always some sort of thing like that.
It was they changed it to to everyone realizing he was real, because it was about the whole stranger danger thing. They didn't want kids to see Big Bird talking to a stranger who ran away every time adults came around.
Oh, okay, all right.
That makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, they didn't think that one through. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he gets in this oil barrel, and I don't know why there are so many oil barrels on Sesame Street, but he's got all 4 feet in there, and this thing, I don't know, it's like the size of an elephant. Well, maybe smaller than an elephant, small elephant, baby elephant. But he's in there, and he says, "Well, how do I get out of here?" And that was like the wah wah kind of thing. Because they thought they had nailed it. Because Snuffy puts like all 4 feet or paws or claws or whatever those things are. I don't even know what he is. I think he's a woolly mammoth or something.
Yeah,
he puts them all in, and they think they figured it out. But he's got is it's like just his 4 feet in there, and he's not actually going down. And now he's stuck in there, and he can't get out.
Don't they even say something like, "Okay, now put your back feet in, or your 3rd foot in"? He's like, "But Santa Claus only has 2 feet."
Oh yeah, and he's also got his trunk stuck in there too, which I liked. That part made me laugh.
Yeah, that was a good bit. I enjoyed Snuffy. I always liked Snuffleupagus. He was one of my favorites.
Me too.
Yeah. So that was a summation of like, okay, they interviewed kids and they got nowhere with it. So that's the end of that part, I believe.
And now it goes back. It actually cuts back to Cookie Monster, and it's the second vignette with him where he's now typing because he lost his pencil.
Oh yeah.
So he has a typewriter, and of course he does
it's an old school typewriter. This is not like what we learned to type on. This is the kind with 2 round ribbons on the top, and it's specifically round ribbons because he does this funny thing where he's talking, and you can tell he's drifting into dreaming about cookies. And he's round, delicious, and he grabs the ribbons and he's eating them, and then he's eating the entire typewriter in there, and it broke it into many, many pieces.
At which point he calls Santa, right?
Well, that's the third vignette, and that by far is that is the funniest one. I think we'll get to it in a minute.
Yeah. But I love because he ends it. Just again, you're right. He's in like one of those. I guess they'd call it like a warrior's madness kind of thing, into feeding frenzy, like sharks. I don't know, but yeah, he's like. Afterwards, he comes out of it and he just looks around. He's like, "Where's a typewriter?" he can't find his typewriter. This is also
his
where
his second attempt to write to Santa Claus has failed.
That's as
the
well.
Point of that one. Yep. So then, what came next after that? I'm glad you have notes on this, Jerry.
Yeah. So this is where the Snuffleupagus part actually. And,
okay.
And so this is where he gets...
okay. I was mixing it up. Thank you. Sorry, ruined it for all of our listeners.
It's and you know what? I was actually kind of tempted to take this in storylines instead of just the chronological ordering of it. But either way, I think it's fine. So.
It is hard to jump around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a testament to how well they put the whole thing together. That
it was edited very
well.
The
whole thing just flowed, and I can't remember when one thing stopped and started. So. All right, hats off to you, John Stone, the director.
This is where let's see. Okay, so yeah, this is where the scene with at least in my notes, that's what I have next is the Happy Hanukkah scene. So I guess they're crossing each other, Bob and Mr. Hooper, and Bob has that Happy Hanukkah, Mr. Hooper, and
yeah, and I've got a problem
Merry
with
Christmas
this
to you.
scene. There's a continuity problem here too. So
Really?
they're out. Yeah, they're outside, and it's light out.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Hooper is only carrying the 2 presents for Bert and Ernie. That's all he's carrying. And I think Bob is carrying like a whole stack of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it is still light outside. And then they say their goodbyes and they go their own way. And then later on, like very shortly later, it's pitch black outside and Bert and Ernie are going to bed. But okay, just suspend disbelief on that one because I think we're at Anthony's favorite part.
This is Anthony's favorite part now. Yeah.
Yeah, Oscar the Grouch's "I Hate Christmas" song. It's amazing. It's so catchy.
You know what it feels like it inspired, and it feels like it inspired like Mr. Garrison in South Park or something. Like decades later. That's like the overtones. I felt like, oh my gosh, this is. Like when you like Christmas Time in Hell or something, like he's singing that on South Park, you're like, I'm feeling the vibe of I Hate Christmas. And it's really well done too.
There are just so many great lyrics in it. Like
I think what happens is Bob and Mr. Hooper, they go their own way. They say their Merry Christmas goodbyes, and Bob turns back and says, hey, Mr. Hooper, Happy Hanukkah.
Happy
really
Hanukkah,
nice.
yeah.
And then I think not Cookie Monster. They're all monsters in this thing. Oscar kind of pops up and is like, "Oh, I'm so sick of all these people wishing each other Merry Christmas." Is
pretty
that how
much?
it started?
Yep.
Okay.
and that's but you're right. There are a lot of great lines in this. I'd rather have a holiday with a lot less joy and flash, a lot less cheerful smiling, and a lot more dirty trash.
I'd rather have a holiday like normal Grouches do. Instead of giving presents, we take presents back from you.
And there's lots of little, I'm going to use your word, Jerry, vignettes. I'm going to start using this word all over my life for the next week. But lots of like cute little things where like they've got people under the awning of Mr. Hooper's store and Oscar hits it with a broom to knock the snow on people. Like that one stood out to me.
Yes.
It's just lots of cute stuff and snowballs and just being a general grouch. And Anthony, did you read that this song was actually cut? I
did.
I don't know what release it was. Maybe it's a VHS release or something, but this song was removed.
They used to show this on Nickelodeon on TV, and they cut it from the Nickelodeon viewings, and which is so weird to me because there's
probably
nothing
for
like
time. I bet. Like
it has to be for time because it can't be for content.
Yeah, it probably is the most cuttable scene. If that's not a word, but if you think about all the things, like this is the one you could cut it out and you don't lose anything.
Yeah.
But I think you lose some good humor about it. But it does also just make Oscar seem even more like a jerk.
You know, Anthony loses some of his joy.
But then at the end, when Maria, like yells at him and he starts to feel bad, I mean, it also kind of diminishes his change a little bit. Although I guess he doesn't really change because he keeps teasing Big Bird. And we'll get to it.
But Jerry, we just learned here that Anthony actually gets his power from Oscar being a grouch. That actually fills his power meter. And if you watch the Nick version, he didn't feel nearly as good. Like right now, if you guys could all just see him, he's so full of joy right now thinking about this song. Yeah, we should screenshot this and put it in the show notes. Oh my gosh, he's glowing.
What's interesting though is on the album they don't even have the song.
And I have I actually have the album. I do have the album. It's on my phone right now, but
apparently Mike Westfall of Advent Calendar House Podcast says there's a Sesame Street compilation album, not just related to this special, on iTunes in which the song is in it, but they change the tempo and everything, so it's more sped up and like even more upbeat, which is weird.
Oh man, no, you can't redo that song. It was perfection.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? If you want to hear the song, go to YouTube. I'm sure if you type "I Hate Christmas" Oscar the Grouch, it'll come up. Everything in the world is on YouTube.
Yep.
It's the new Library of Congress. I mean, I wouldn't have Jingle Jank is entirely run on YouTube videos.
Yeah, that is the whole gist of your podcast.
That is our whole spiel. Yeah. So you'll find it there. It's a very cute song. It's well done. Actually, and Jerry, you're the musician here. I thought it was like it had like a it was musically, it was a cool song.
It was a good song. I thought it was well constructed. I mean, just everything about it. Like Anthony said, it's catchy.
It's very catchy.
It really is a song.
Yeah.
It's a good.
I hate Christmas. a nice beat to it. Very fun.
And it gives Oscar something to do, and I think that's part of why they had it, right? Like, it's the most expendable bit, but like, if he wasn't in this scene, he wouldn't have been in the special except the beginning and the very end.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. That is true.
Yep.
But
got to be inclusive to green garbage can monsters.
Actually, I think he's orange.
He was orange in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, and it's all the gunk and grime that turned him green.
Turned him green. He went to a swamp. I forgot what the swamp was called, but that was the explanation for why he turned green between two seasons.
And he just never.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna need a minute here. This is new information in my life that I'm trying to assimilate. I don't know of an orange Oscar the Grouch. This has turned my whole night upside down.
It's definitely it's something.
I'm gonna look this one up while you guys are talking.
Well, this segs straight into Bert and Ernie. So Mr. Hooper was on his way, and now he's there, and so we have Bert and Ernie.
Orange Oscar. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry. This is awful.
No, go for it.
Just go on. No, I can't. This does not exist in the canon for me. Go on. Bert and Ernie. Up to the match.
I understand. I have my own head canon for several things. Star Wars ends with episode 6. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Jerry.
Palpitations here. This is disconcerting.
But yeah,
Jerry, we still need to do that episode, by the way.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so so Bert and Ernie are exchanging their presents, and I love, Bert gives Ernie gives Bert his present, and Bert is so fastidious and so careful that he's like, oh, maybe I should just use some scissors and everything about it is just so.
Ernie, this is a great he calls it a packing job.
Yeah,
he says, you did a great packing job here. He says, such straight lines on the ribbon. Now, maybe if I put a finger under here.
Yeah.
Just open it, Bert.
That's how my cousin opens her gifts, and she saves the wrapping paper. And it's infuriating.
My mom used to save bows. Like, don't throw out the bows.
Well, the bows I get. At least that's, you can tape it on. But the wrapping paper, I mean, it seems like you could really only use it for something the same size. I don't know.
Yeah, but Jerry, like as a father now, my lot in life is to walk around with a trash bag.
With the trash bag, that's what we have to do.
And pick up like I'm constantly like sweeping up. I'm like an usher in the background.
That's exactly right. That's
just
how I
me
am
sweeping things up.
That's how my dad still is when we go over to open gifts.
Yeah, and when you are blessed with children, you will be the same.
I have no doubt.
The duty passes on to you. It is.
It's one of the passages of fatherhood.
Yep.
Yeah. And you think it's not going to happen to you, but it does.
Yes, you're right. Exactly.
I don't know how it happened.
So Bert opens the gift, and it's the cigar box, and Ernie's so excited. He's like, it's for your paperclip collection. Come on, go get him, put it in. And of course, Bert is, he's worried, so he immediately changes the subject to, no, open your present.
Oh yeah. This is before Mr. Hooper shows up. This is
before
just them,
he shows up.
This is them exchanging the cigar box and the soap dish. This is the culmination of the gift of the Magi thing.
Yes, yeah, and so then Ernie opens his, and it's the soap dish, and he's like, "It's beautiful, Bert." He's like, "I got it for Rubber Ducky," and every time, like on both characters, when they realize that it's for Rubber Ducky and for the paperclip collection, we get a musical cue. It's like, boom, and they kind of freeze and they're afraid. Yeah,
it's like an augmented chord, Jerry. It's like,
well, it's not, but yeah, it's definitely there's
or diminished. Is it a diminished chord?
No, I believe it's just a minor.
All right. Well, it's very suspenseful, and for all you Gen Z people out there who don't know what Gift of the Magi is, by the way, we've mentioned this about half a dozen times here. It's a story by O. Henry.
Yep.
It's a young couple, and the woman has long, glorious hair, and she cuts it and sells it to buy, I think it's like a chain for her husband's pocket watch. Is that correct? And then the husband sells his gold pocket watch to buy hair clips for his wife, and the two of them, and there is no Mr. Hooper in the O. Henry story. They exchange gifts, and they realize and it's actually kind of crummy because the guy still has a gold chain, but her hair we'll grow back.
We'll grow back, yeah.
On that. But you
That
know,
was
and
always my
it's just, and
thought, too.
it just wraps up and says like, oh, you know, they have discovered that the real, you know, love of Christmas is, you know, I don't know, whatever, you know, the thought, the selflessness or something like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, and fine, it's O. Henry. Go look it up. It's at a library. A library is a building that has books in it. You don't know what it is. So anyway, so now they've got the suspenseful, you know, note here, and then I think there's a knock at the door at night.
There's
They
a
just say,
knock at
"Come
the
on
door."
in." You know,
Yep.
oh sure, you live in this seedy part of town. You just let anybody in at night on Christmas Eve. Go for it. You know, they didn't say who is it.
No,
But
I don't know what
are
it is.
Bert and Ernie supposed to be adults?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
They're supposed to be Muppets, I guess.
Well, no, because like later on, you see like Elmo has parents. He's not in the special, obviously.
Right,
These
right.
Pre-Elmo years, but
Right.
Telly Monster has parents, and you never see that for Bert and Ernie. So I always wondered, are
I
they
guess so.
actually adults?
Yeah, well, the funny thing,
Well,
Anthony,
'cause
is
aren't
I
they,
was
like,
watching
based on
this
The
and I
Odd
was
Couple?
thinking, I was like, well, wait a minute, what do they do for jobs? Like, how do they afford to keep the lights on? Like, that
I was thinking
honestly
that too,
crossed
because
my
both of them
mind.
say they have no money. It's like, well, maybe they spent all their money on bills.
Yeah,
I guess. I don't know.
Bert's spending all that money on flying out to Anaheim for the paperclip convention every year.
yeah, exactly.
There you go. But you know, it's the door, and it's Mr. Hooper, and he has presents for them, and so they open it up, and first Bert opens it up, and it's his paperclip collection.
Well, hold
And-
on though, Jerry, because this is a line that I actually love in here. I think Ernie says like, "Why don't you go first, Bert?" Oh, okay, hunky dory or something, right? And then he's like, "Okay, so maybe I can, get my finger under this wrapping paper." And then Ernie goes, "Bert," and I just love that line. It's just the way he says it, and that's all I can think of when I think Ernie. Like, Bert. So he opens it up, and it's the paperclip collection, and it's a really nice line because. He's like, "Oh, it's my paperclip collection," and Ernie says,
How did
Mr. Hooper get your paperclip collection?"
And I love
And
Mr.
Mr.
Hooper's
Hooper in the
response.
background
Never
says,
mind. Yeah.
he says, "Don't you worry about it," or "Never you mind," whatever he
Yeah.
says. And it was really, really nice. He saves Bert from having to explain it, and
Mhm.
not having to give up the joke on it was really nice, I thought.
Yeah. And then, I completely agree. It's because I could see it's something like my grandma would do. Well, don't worry
Yeah.
about it. It's
Yep.
And so then
Magic.
Ernie opens his, and of course it's Rubber Ducky.
And the same line, then Bert has the same line. Like,
Mhm.
well, why does Mr. Hooper have Rubber Ducky?
It's
And I don't
sort of a
remember
long
what the
story.
answer is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
sort
he
of a
says
long
It's a
story,
long
yeah.
story, something like that.
Yeah, and then they look at each other and they say, "Hey, we didn't buy anything for Mr. Hooper."
Yeah.
And he says, "You're wrong, boys." He said, "I
this
got to
part.
see everybody get exactly what they wanted for Christmas," and it was really sweet. It was a
Mhm.
really, really probably the nicest moment in the whole show, I thought.
The
Yeah.
only thing that could have made it nicer, to your point, what you said earlier, Scott, is if
Is
they
if
had
they
said
said-
Happy Hanukkah instead of Merry
Yeah,
Christmas.
exactly. They say Merry Christmas, and he goes on along his way. I wish they had just said Happy Hanukkah, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It also, maybe he's just good natured about it. Maybe he's, I'm rather, what is it? Is secular the non-religious kind?
Yes.
Yep.
I treat the holiday more as secular anyway. This is just an enjoyable time of year. I don't
Right, right.
identify strongly with the religious part of it. So I'm just going to take it that way. He just loves this time of year and seeing people happy and doing nice things. So I'll give everybody a pass on this one.
Well, Mr. Hooper was always, just kind of friendly and jolly anyway.
Sweet,
So
yeah.
you're right. That's the right word. Sweet. He was just a sweet guy anyway.
He was like the grandfather of Sesame Street, right? Like
Pretty
everyone
much,
on the
yeah.
street.
Yeah, you're right.
Mhm. Yeah. And then we get them singing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" here.
Yeah, and I'll be
Such a
honest,
good
I hit the
moment.
plus 30 on this one. I just kept going.
I loved it.
I know. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and this was like 2 nights ago. My daughter was sick, so she was actually sleeping next to me, and I was like trying to hold the iPad in such a way that she wasn't bathed in light. So it was a tough situation for everybody. You're just gonna have to give me a pass on this
I've
one.
been
So
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just added some time to it. I promise to go back and listen to it later, guys. All right.
No, it's okay. But this is when we get to the third of the Cookie Monster bits, and
The best one, as Anthony he alluded to here. This is the best one.
So he tries to call Santa
And
With an old rotary
area
phone.
code.
Yeah, an old rotary phone. I love it.
And yeah, you're right. He actually gets through to him, and of course he starts.
Well, but hold on, Jerry. He while it's ringing, Cookie Monster's having a monologue with himself, like, "Oh, I can't wait to talk to Santa. Here, I'm going to ask him for." And he looks at the phone. He does another one of these like dreamy things. He goes, "Delicious cupcakes," and he starts eating the receiver of the phone.
And you can
for
hear
Gen Z
Santa.
kids out there, that's the part that used to be on a coiled wire that you'd hold up to your head.
Phones, phones used to be stationary.
So he's got the whole hand, the receiver in his stomach, and the coiled wire is coming out of his mouth.
and you can hear Santa Claus.
It's ringing, and then Santa answers it. Ho, 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 ho.
Hello.
Says, hello. And I have a factoid for you on this one. The voice of Santa is John Stone,
Yep.
director.
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So I thought
I
that was
did read
really
that.
cool because, man, he did a great Santa Claus there. It was a ho, 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 and, lots of reverb on that. It was awesome. And and he's like, oh, and then, Cookie looks at the camera and says, uh-oh, or something like that.
Mhm.
Well, it's when, oh my God, I love that. And then when they come in and explain you leave cookies out for Santa Cookie.
Oh, that comes
it's
up
like,
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, do you remember that old meme, the shocked squirrel or the shocked prairie dog or something with the close zoom in?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it reminded me of. Cookie Monster's mind was blown by this information. I laughed so hard.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's the last vignette with Cookie Monster and trying to get in touch with Santa. What happens after this, Jerry?
So Big Bird, this is when Big Bird kind of gives up, and he Patty goes home, and
she leaves. Yeah, Patty leaves.
Patty leaves, and he just kind of figured, he's like, I've asked everybody, and then he says, wait a minute, I can find out how he gets down, and so he decides to go up on the roof. Of course, we don't know.
We don't quite know that.
We don't know that
yet.
yet. We just know that he leaves somewhere.
He trudges off. Patty goes home. And by the way, guys, I looked up because I thought the little girl actor who played Patty must have been very famous. Nope. This was on IMDb. This is all she did. And I'm sure she had a very successful life doing whatever she did. I don't know. Maybe she's an accountant or something. Who knows? But no, she's not a famous actor.
Yeah.
She'll always have Sesame Street.
She'll always have Sesame Street, and she's
Aren't
probably
Gordon and Maria still on Sesame Street?
They are.
When they eventually leave, like they can bring Patty back or the young kids.
Yeah.
They are still on Sesame Street. They've added a couple of other
there's-
folks here and there, but
Yeah, there's going to be another Mr. Hooper episode, if you know what I mean, pretty soon.
well, I guess this generation needs it.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, so this one, Gordon comes home and he talks to Cookie Monster, and Cookie says all the stuff about me tried to write letter to Santa Claus, but me got hungry and me ate pencil, and he tells him everything that happens essentially.
And Gordon says, often people leave gifts for Santa Claus. That great idea. He says, Santa bring me cookies. I leave Santa necktie.
Or shaving cream.
Shaving cream, yeah. Well, actually, Cookie, it's pretty common to leave Santa cookies. And that's that's the close up on his face. Like Anthony said, his mind is just blown. Like, what? Wait a minute. What?
And
this is very circular here.
Yeah.
You could edit that music in where it's like, as it zooms in on his face.
But this is when they find out, because Patty goes to tell him that she went to check on Big Bird and he's gone. And so now everybody goes to look for him essentially because he's not in his nest and he was acting funny. And
yeah, that's right. And you know what? I thought of something though. Like this whole thing with Cookie Monster, and now he's got to leave cookies to get cookies, and it's very circular. This kind of reminded me of my sister lives on the other side of the country. She has a kid. I have a kid. So it's like, all right, well, I'll buy a gift for your kid, and you will buy a gift for my kid, and we're gonna net even on this. And finally, it's like, just buy your kid something and say it's for me. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Just keep it around. I don't know, $50. All right, done. It was like, wait a minute, like, I'm going through all this work to get cookies, and now I've got to give away cookies. And I think even as a kid, like that kind of resonated with me. Like, wait a minute, this is a raw deal.
Yeah. It's in the giving.
Sure it is.
Oh man! So
when you're a kid, you don't think about the giving part.
No, you don't. I mean, that's why Christmas was like my favorite, and Santa was like
it was the getting. I'll admit it. To anybody who'll listen.
Same here.
Now, of course, it's about for me. It's about the giving now. My wife and I don't even exchange presents. We take the money that we would have bought each other. We've done this since we first started dating 15 years ago, and we buy toys and we donate them. We just don't need anything. We don't want for anything in our life. And it's just not important to me at all. Now we do it just so, because my daughter's like, what do you mean you don't have a present for dad? Like, okay, all right, well, fine, necktie, whatever. But
shaving.
But as an adult, you watch this I almost call this a film. This is not a film. You watch this show a little differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Definitely. But yeah, so they all go look for Big Bird, and we discover that he's actually on the roof.
And he looks like he's about to die of frostbite. The way
he's got the little icicles on his beak.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where I have to admit how stupid I was to all the listeners here, because I was watching this and I said, wait a minute. I said birds are cold-blooded. No, birds are not cold-blooded, Scott. No, they're not. They're absolutely not. And I looked that up, and I was like, wow, that was really dumb. Because I was really mad at them for a minute. Like, why are they teaching people that birds can feel cold if they're cold-blooded? Because they've got him, he's Big Bird's sitting there, and he's going, brrr, and he's got the icicles dripping
end
from his nose. Yeah. And he said, I'm freezing my giblets off here, which I thought was kind of an adult line.
I don't know. It made me laugh, though.
Yeah, as a kid, it didn't make me laugh. Now I thought that was pretty funny. That was almost a little blue there. But yeah, so he goes up. You see the scene where Big Bird goes up to the roof, and it's equally seedy as everywhere else on Sesame Street, and he walks up to a pigeon coop, which I think is very weird. And he's like, "How's it going, fellas?" Because that would be like you and me walking down to a basement, going up to a cage full of humans, like, "How's it going, guys?" And then we go about our way like it's nothing. But okay.
I will say I appreciated the skyline of Sesame Street at night. I thought that was very cool.
It was
something you get in an average episode. And we haven't really touched on it yet, but Sesame Street in dark, decked out for Christmas, the lights and everything looked really.
That was cool. Yeah, exactly. Really Darkness cool. Hides a lot. Yeah.
Yep.
I look awesome at night. But Big Bird also walks away from the pigeon coop, and then there are more pigeons on the ledge, which is odd. Shouldn't you guys be in the coop? But they very clearly look at the chimney pipe, and he says, and Big Bird is having a monologue, and it says, "Yeah, how does he fit down this thing? And this thing is maybe 6 inches wide, and there is steam coming out of it." The visible vapor coming out of this. Like, well, we haven't even touched on the fact that this thing is on, but okay, go on. So that's they kind of tie a nice bow on that. Like, yeah, this thing is really small, and you feel for Big Bird at that point. Like, he is really worried about how could Santa possibly get down this thing, and I think he just sits down on a peach, crate or something that's sitting coincidentally just sitting right there, and then it starts to snow if I remember correctly. And so he falls asleep, and because you can see him snoring later on. But everybody's frantic looking for him. Oh, he even mentions that, Jerry. He says, oh, look at everybody down there, they're running around like ants. I wonder what they're looking for. And they're going like, Big Bird. Okay.
And they're so crazy that Maria even hammers on Oscar's can, and she tells him off essentially.
I liked that. That part was it almost felt real. I know this whole thing isn't real, so come on, bear with me here. But it felt very honest. How angry she was. You've done this, you've got him all upset, and now he's missing, and it's Christmas Eve, and this is all your fault. And it was It was good.
And at first he kind of plays it off, he's like, oh, he'll come back. He's part homing pigeon.
But she legitimately guilts him, and he feels sorry, and he's like, I guess I'm gonna go out and help
go find
him,
him,
and
go
then
look for him,
apologize. Yeah.
And you feel like this is a redemption part, and we'll get to why it's not in a couple of minutes. But he's like, all right, I'll go find him, and you think he's turning it around.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would have gone a long way to actually have Oscar be the one to find him. By the way, like, I don't know why they didn't do that.
That would have been very cool. Now that I'm thinking about it, like in a much more cinematic way, you could have had him find him, had him apologize, talk about, faith or something, not having to see everything to experience in life or something. I don't know. Would have been a completely different show though. So it doesn't work. But yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, I agree. But in the meantime, you hear the sleigh bells, and then Big Bird, wakes up and.
No, hold on, Jerry. This is a creepy scene.
Creepy?
And you know what I'm talking about, Anthony, because they've got Big Bird. He's sitting there. He's snoring. He's got the icicles. He's covered in snow. And you hear sleigh bells, and all you see is a shadow cast over him. Like, this could be straight out of a horror movie. And I looked really close. There's no obvious like Santa hat silhouette or anything. It's just a dark silhouette over him, and you hear boots trudging. And that's it. And it's like, for a minute, I was like, wait a minute, this is not right. And then I think they kind of play some sound effect, right? And that's supposed to kind of denote this was the magic of Santa Claus at this point. And, everything, all is forgiven, kind of thing. Like, he must have delivered his toys. You heard some sound that denoted this. That's all I could take away from it. But, it just bothered me that they didn't make it very clear that it was Santa.
Right.
Dark and brooding.
There were sleigh bells.
Okay. It's like Psycho or something.
Krampus also has sleigh bells, Jerry.
Well, that's true.
That would have been a wholly different episode.
So yes, he wakes up. He says the Friesman's giblets line. And
I'm gonna go
inside and get warmed up. And so
then my giblets out or something like that.
So he goes inside, and they're like, "Big Bird." He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I went up.
Well, this is the part that bothered me though, Jerry. Sorry to keep interrupting you there. But
No, it's okay.
This one really struck home with me. So they're. As Big Bird is walking down the stairs, we don't yet see him. Gordon has Patty on his shoulder, and it's obviously late at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very dark out. That's all we know. There's no time on Sesame Street. But they say, like, oh, it's okay, Patty. We'll figure something out. Like, let's just warm up here. And that's what I'm thinking, like, doesn't Patty have parents? Like, aren't they worried about where she is? Because they just took off looking for the bird. And that like, as a parent, was like, whoa, you gotta let the parents know where the kid is, kind of thing. But different time. You go out for 3 or 4 days at a time as a child, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's all Christmas Eve, so I guess.
Yeah, and it's Christmas Eve, exactly. Like, you're not home with your family.
So why wouldn't she be with her family? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then you see Big Bird come out, down the stairs in the background of the shot. Big Bird, and I like it felt very honest to me, because Gordon at first is like, hey, are you okay? And then he's like, where have you been? And that would be I would just be irate. And like, these are the things that I have to work on as a parent. Like, you have to start from a positive place before you get right into the negative here. And it's like, no, I'd be so mad that I was out looking for you. Where in the world were you? You didn't have your cell phone on, Bert or Big Bird? Come on,
Well, he came home. He was part homing pigeon.
And he says, oh, I went upstairs. I went up to see, how Santa comes down the chimney, and I didn't see him, but I'm going right back up. And he goes, oh, no, you're not. And they actually physically drag him through the door, which was kind of a funny scene.
And he's like, well, Oscar said, if Santa couldn't get down, then no one would get any presents. And so Gordon actually, so it was like, does it look like no one's getting any presents?
They pull him into Gordon's apartment, and Santa has obviously been there. There's the light, the harp music, and the swell of the music. And you look around, he said, does it look like Santa had any problem getting in here? Mm-hmm. Or something like that. That's not the exact line.
It's like, but how does he do it? And
he's like, well, why do you need to know?
Because it's important. And he's like, and that's when we get another lesson. It's like, no, that's not what's important. What's important is that, we lost you and we were worried about you, and now you're back safe and sound and we're all together for Christmas. And then, of course, he sings, it's like a little reprise, and if that isn't a true blue miracle, I don't know what is,
Yeah.
So then, of course, Oscar comes in and he kind of
crack about the Easter Bunny.
He half apologizes, but then he teases him again.
I'm still mad about this. I'm just still mad because you think that Oscar, this is the redemption of Oscar the Grouch, and it is not. He says, "Hey, I'm sorry about this," and he says, "Hey, how do you think the Easter Bunny hides all those eggs in one night?" And then they go back to Big Bird. And now his mouth is like, whatever, his beak is like shaking. He's all worried.
Yeah, he's quivering.
I was so mad. Like as a parent, like that's where you just want to smack the other kid. Like, what are you doing here? Like, stop it. And it bothered me so much. I wish they hadn't done that. And they even did the music and like it's supposed to be funny. I didn't find it funny. It just made me like, you didn't learn a darn thing, did you, Oscar?
You know what?
So I'm still fired up about this.
I guess he really wouldn't be the same Oscar the Grouch if he didn't do that. But I know what you mean. I thought
I like stories with happy endings, and I think most people do. Do you remember Futurama? You remember that show?
I love Futurama.
Yeah, and they were talking about something in there, and they talked about how the show wasn't clever, and I think Fry said, people don't like things that are clever, and that's how I feel about this. Like, I want this thing to wrap up nicely with a bow. Just make me happy at the end here. Everybody learned a lesson, and it's done. Yep. And I think that's how a modern show would be. This is not a modern show. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I really feel like they would have tried to solve the quote unquote Oscar problem in a modern show.
I think it depends.
Well, I think at least modern shows would have it where the Oscar problem was solved for the episode, and then the next episode is right back to who he normally is.
That would have been fine.
Yeah.
That would have been fine, but that's not what happened here, and I'm still fired up about it.
Oscar's gonna Oscar.
And then I believe that's the end of the episode, except for a little cutscene, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they play they play True Blue Miracle again, Jerry?
No, Gordon sings it, but then after that, it's
Keep Christmas with You.
Keep Christmas,
And okay, so this is 1978,
right?
And special effects were not what they are today. These are about the worst overlays on screen that you've ever seen.
They're pretty bad, yeah.
Actually, if George Lucas was doing the Star Wars crawl in the same year, like they could have taken a page from that, because this was bad, like bad. It looked like it was drawn like in white marker on glass, and they shot through it or something.
They got that PBS budget though. They spent it all. They spent it all on Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
They spent it all on Oscar going through the sheetrock.
Sheetrock, yeah. That and Feliz Navidad.
And Feliz Navidad, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But then after that, they go back to Gordon's apartment, right?
The end tag, yeah. It's in Gordon's apartment. You're right. Mm-hmm.
End tag? You're fancy, Jerry. I didn't know it was called that.
Well, I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but that's what I call it.
Okay.
Although growing up, I think we called it the little ending. The little ending.
Yeah, but so who is it? It's Cookie Monster. Is laying on the floor like, oh, and they look around and he's eating the entire Christmas tree, right?
Yeah, and
I have to admit, I actually forgot to watch this the other. I just closed it out the other night and didn't watch this part. I'm just remembering it from memory here, and he said something like, Scotch pine is better or something like that. Yeah, he's talking about the
Douglas fir give me heartburn.
Yeah.
And then he's just burping like the whole time.
Yeah. They're like, "Oh, Cookie Monster!" I'd be furious. I
would too.
Monster out, yeah. White tree, my ornaments.
It's very Christmas
I do have in my notes.
White tree.
Yeah, I have in my notes here that tree was really tacky looking. When they go back to it. I feel like it
was very 70s.
It was so 70s. I mean, this thing looks like they dumped a garbage bag of tinsel over it.
It's funny because looking at some pictures of when I was growing up, I mean, a lot of our trees look very similar. So it's definitely the style of the time. But
it reminded me, honestly, a little bit of A Christmas Story's tree. This tree in A Christmas Story.
Yeah, which is not a nice tree either. And
it is not.
Jerry, you're the Christmas tree expert in the bunch here, but I'm from a German family, and we always had an artificial tree growing up because my mom wanted the tree to look perfect. She said real trees don't look perfect like they do in cards. So we always had this absolutely perfect tree. And my parents would spend hours stringing the lights on it each year. So to see a tree like that with, that thing looked like it had seen better days.
That's true.
That does not register as a Christmas tree in my book, because mine are perfectly triangular and,
we had live trees for a while, and then my brother, the youngest, was very allergic, and I don't know, we ended up having to move to the fake trees, and so that's what we've had ever since. And you're right, they're a lot easier. They're they last longer, obviously, and so you can keep it up longer and things like that. And so there's a lot of benefits to it, but at the same time, I do kind of miss a little bit that real tree feel, but not enough to actually go get one.
I mentioned this on the Total Christmas podcast. Like, one of the things we used to do when we lived in Florida is we would go to Lowe's, and they would have an outside tent with all the live Christmas trees in there, because in Florida, the garden center is year round. Where I am now in Colorado, the garden center is completely empty. They just throw the trees in there, but they would actually put it in a standalone tent in Lowe's and Home Depot in Florida. And the cool thing about the tent was it kept the smell in, like, really, really strong.
Really?
So every year my wife and I, we would just, we would walk, she was my fiance or girlfriend then, we would go and we would walk into the tent, and the person was always like, "Hey, can I help you?" And I said, "No, we're just here to smell." And we just walk around and see the trees and kind of appreciate it, because they smell amazing. But we're kind of neat freaks and perfectionists, so that's just not how I grew up. So I like the trees, but not that one in Gordon's place.
That
was a long aside on there, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But it does actually bring me to a question that I got to ask you guys. What would you say is your happiest moment or memory of this special here?
You go first, Anthony.
Every time, Jerry, I know this question is coming.
Yep. You want me to go while you think about it for a second?
You can go, yep.
Okay. Really, Jerry, it's all three vignettes with Cookie Monster, but the last one with the phone, I just think is the funniest. And for some reason, when he looks at the receiver of the phone and he says, "These look like cuppy cakes," that's just very funny to me. It's not even that funny. I think, we were, the whole family was watching it one year, and we had done all the work of cooking and cleaning up and, presents, everything. We were almost like punch drunk with tiredness, not actually drunk, but we're watching it, and like we were just in hysterics over it. And that brings back a memory for me. So Cookie Monster, just in general, but specifically that line, would be my happiest memory from this special.
That's a good one. Anthony?
Mine would probably be when Mr. Hooper comes and gives Bert and Ernie back their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And he says,
nice.
His Christmas gift from them is, just seeing them happy, basically. Mm-hmm. And then they all sing, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas."
Well, now I got to pick something
all the
else.
feels. Is that going to be yours?
And Anthony, knowing the backstory of that actor and that he didn't have kids and he just did this for the love of it, it actually adds to it.
Yeah, 100%.
It feels so authentic. I think that is the sweetest, most touching moment of this. Sure. I think I said it was something else. I changed my mind. This is my final answer. That I agree with you. That was the nicest part of this whole thing.
Let's make it a treble. So that's actually mine too. So my favorite memory, if I had to go with a memory, it would be watching it in I think back then we still had the mobile home, and, just sitting on the couch, and it was, just this wonderful time. Everything was great. But as far as favorite moment in the actual episode, it's that part there. And, everything about it. We didn't get anything for him. And he's like, "Nope, you're wrong. You did." Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
But that brings me to my next section, which is my favorite part of this show. And that's a little segment I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the episode. And as the guests, I will let y'all go first. It doesn't matter who wants to go first. Just kind of set up the scene for us, and then we'll let the voters decide, and this will be for bragging rights. Ultimate Sesame Street champ.
I'll go first, and Jerry, because this whole special to me is near perfection. I don't have a scene I actually hate.
Okay.
I can't say it's my least favorite quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. So I'm going to. This is Cookie Monster writing his letter to Santa Claus.
Oh,
is that what you were gonna do?
No, that's my favorite. This is your least favorite. That's okay. That's all right. This is why restaurants have menus. We don't all eat steak, Jerry, my least favorite part, which is kind of a stretch, it's only one single line. And we didn't mention it in here, but I do have it in my notes. It's when they're outside of Gordon's apartment and Big Bird had just come down and, hey, where have you been? And he says, but what if Santa is stuck in a chimney somewhere? Or what if he's stacked over Kennedy? And that line it was obviously not for kids. It doesn't make sense to kids. And it's not even, I guess it's kind of a chuckle, but at this point, I don't know. I was like, that sucked when I heard it. So I didn't like that. And I guess that if it's Kennedy, wouldn't he be in New York then?
I guess
Isn't Kennedy Airport in New York? So
it's in New York.
It's definitely New York.
Gave that one away. Sorry, kids. But no, I didn't like that. What if he stacked over Kennedy? I just don't like it because it's not a line for kids.
Yeah, I gotcha. So Anthony, are you going to give us your best Cookie Monster?
My best Cookie Monster, my worst Cookie Monster. Yeah, sure. You're Santa. Oh, what we ask for? What else? Cookies! Oh, yeah. 24 coconut macaroons. No. Maybe £1.50 of Figgy Newtons. Oh, me getting hungry. Me love cookies. Oatmeal cookies. Me ask for 3 dozen. Oh, what the hey? 4 dozen.
4 dozen.
Or how about banana cookies? Or prune cookies? Chocolate-covered marshmallow with jelly inside cookies. You got to write that down. Or a pencil.
That was good.
I'm laughing so hard. I'm coughing now. Thanks, Anthony.
No problem.
Oh, man. All right. Wow.
So
that one doesn't win. Jeez.
Well, it's definitely going to be better than mine. Mine is Snuffy. And it's not that I didn't like the line. It's a funny line. What I didn't like about it was that he had Big Bird like convinced that everything was fine. If he had to, why did he keep questioning? If he had just stopped questioning, or if he didn't say this line here, Big Bird would have dropped the whole thing. And so it's after he's got all his feet in the barrel. And so he says, now that we know how Santa gets into the chimney, how does he get out? So not a very good Snuffy, but I did what I could.
Jerry,
his voice is so creepy.
I was about to say, I love you, man, but that sounded like Snuffy was trying to lure kids into a van. Right?
Yeah, it does.
I don't know, man. I told you I'm not a good Snuffy. But
I don't know, Big Bird. It's like, ugh.
So I will
hair on my arm stand up.
To vote and see which one of us had the best. And apparently it's definitely not me, especially since I have never won yet. So maybe they'll throw me a bone this time.
The way it should be, Jerry. It's just, yeah. Okay, so this is good, Jerry. I'm actually prepared for your next segment here.
No, there we go. Okay, so
good. So you get to do this one first.
So you introduce it.
If G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you guys think is the other half?
Okay, I'm going to go first here.
Okay,
because this one actually struck me in the shower. So I'm going to take a more philosophical approach to this one.
Okay.
And it was probably because I was listening to a Buddhism podcast while I was mowing the lawn. So if Big Bird had just given up his desire to know the answer to this, he would have been free of all the suffering that he had to deal with throughout this episode. If he had just let go of the need to know, everything would have still turned out the same. And he would have had a great Christmas Eve. He wouldn't have been sitting on the roof and freezing and worrying and panicking the whole time.
It's true.
So that's what I was thinking of. If he had just, I don't know. It's not quite faith, but it's like giving up this unnecessary need to have the answer, to find out the answer, because he's already come every year. You've always gotten presents. Just relax and enjoy it. And he could have had just a much better Christmas Eve. So that would be my answer. That would be the other half on this one.
Right on. That's good. What about you, Anthony?
If knowing is half the battle, living in a town where you have your very own Mr. Hooper is the second half. Because
Oh,
life
that
is
is
that's a good one
automatically
too.
better.
Okay. Well, I can't top either of those. That was a good one.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we wouldn't go to Mr. Hooper's store these days. We'd go to Bed Bath & Beyond. You know?
Yeah,
That's true.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
if you're looking
I'll
for,
get Bert a Tupperware.
I was gonna say, if you're looking for something for Bert, you'd go to the Container Store. But so for me, if knowing is half the battle, the other half is don't make girls named Maria mad.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh man,
I guess it's keep Christmas with you all through the years.
you know what? That
Answer,
really is
isn't it,
the
though?
other half of the battle. Yeah.
That would be the one. That's the takeaway from this. But what
and
a
it-
fun special! And there was another Sesame Street Christmas special this same year, and Jack Ford did it on the Total Christmas podcast. I've never seen it.
I never have either.
This was the popular one, and I don't even know the name of it. I know I'm correct that there was another one that was a panned, much less popular one this exact same year.
What was it
Caruso
called?
won an Emmy for outstanding children's program in '79 for it.
Oh, they did? Okay. And
Mhm.
I think did they win a Grammy
it was
for
called
the
a Special
audience?
Sesame Street Christmas.
There you go.
That's what that one was called.
Yeah, and you can find an episode of the Total Christmas podcast where he goes over the whole thing. It was all brand new to me. I'd never heard of it because I am a Christmas Eve on Sesame Street truther. This is the only one I know and the only one I will accept.
I love it. I love it.
But Jerry, did I read that they won a Grammy for one of the songs? Maybe.
I didn't find that out.
Let me
I
see
wouldn't
what I'm
doubt
trying to
it. They are
remember.
good. They are good songs. Let's see. It's very possible.
Oh, but Barkley was in a special Sesame Street Christmas.
Well, that's
It wasn't in
Barkley's
this
in that one. Yeah. Hmm.
I love Barkley.
Yeah. I don't see anything here about the Grammy.
Okay.
Very possible.
Well, maybe
I
I'm just
doubt
making
it.
things up. I was tired. I don't know. My kid was sick. I don't know.
Hey, well, you know what? If it didn't, it should have, and so we can we'll spread that around
Oh, the name Carol. So I'm on the Wikipedia page.
for Carol Hall.
Carol
Yeah.
Spinney. Carol Spinney was the puppeteer
Bird,
inside
yeah.
of Big Bird,
Mhm.
and I think he died.
He did just
either
pass
this
away
year-
recently. Yeah.
Yeah, and was he tall? He must have been tall.
I
Well,
don't
he
must
know.
have
wasn't
been
8 feet
tall.
tall, of course. But you can't be of diminutive stature inside of the Big Bird costume. It just wouldn't work, would it?
Actually, he was only 5'10". I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
It's
How about
just-
that? Yeah, they won a 1979 Emmy Award for Outstanding Children's Program. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's neat. Yeah, and then this is the line, and you've already looked it up, but it was one of Christmas Eve on Sesame Street's competitors that year was a lesser-known, critically panned Sesame Street special on CBS called a special Sesame Street Christmas.
I kinda
So
wanna
just
go
like
watch
you
it
said
now.
there,
Yeah.
yeah.
It really makes me want to watch it.
I'm not sure it has any place in my life. I don't know. I don't think I could accept it. Sorry. No,
this sounds,
well,
this sounds like fake news to me.
Yeah, it is.
On that
Okay.
note,
One more thing, Jerry.
okay, go for it.
The Christmas Eve on Sesame Street album features several songs from the television special along with narration.
It does
It
have
was
narration. yeah.
nominated for a Grammy Award, but it lost to another Sesame Street record. So that's what I was remembering. It was nominated. It did not win.
Gotcha.
Yeah, at least I hadn't totally lost my mind.
Guys, it's been a blast talking with you about the special. It's definitely one of the longer episodes, but it's been fun that I don't care.
Yeah, well, and I
Um,
honestly thought this thing was 2 hours long when I sat down to watch it because there's so much in it. It
There's
doesn't.
so much.
It doesn't. It's a full 59 minutes and change, though. It's not
Mhm.
like a 1 hour special that's really 40 minutes without commercial. Like this is a full
It's-
hour,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but it
It
feels
sure
like
is.
I'm exhausted right now. Like just having gone through this whole thing here. It's 82 degrees in my booth and I'm dying.
Well, then let's we'll wrap this up, guys. What do you want to plug? Tell me about your shows.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So my show is Jingle Jank. Jerry, we're still going to have you on. We'll probably do it after the new year, though, when things
Sure.
get a little easier. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll have a blast doing it. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
find obscure and offbeat Christmas music on YouTube. My best friend Jay and I, we try to find the weird stuff, the wacky stuff. If you've heard the song before, it's probably not something we're going to showcase on the show. So we try to pick a theme each week. We go through 5 to 8 songs, and we just have a real good time. Sometimes the music is awful, and it's obscure music, and by its nature, a lot of it is awful. So we'll poke some lighthearted fun at it. Other times the music is really, really good. It's just something you may not know exists, and you'll come away with a new artist or something that you hadn't heard before. So check us out. You can find us at jinglejank.com. You can find all the links to our socials, and we're on all the major platforms. Wherever you buy your podcast, you can find it there.
And you can find me on Tis the Podcast. I'm one of the 3 co-hosts, along with Tom and Julia, who you've also heard on this show before as special guests of Jerry. We basically every week cover a different Christmas movie or television special, and rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, essentially, with a lot of banter and sarcasm and trolling in the middle. And we keep a canonical list on our website, justthepodcast.com, in which we have our definitive average rankings. But it's a fun show. You'll have heard Jerry on there. Scott, we have to get you on.
Sure, I'd love to. Did you say that you've done this Christmas special on your show?
Yeah, we only did it a few months ago.
Okay, what was your score then? You said you rank it from 1 to 10?
We nearly gave it a perfect 10, I think. Let me see.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah.
I gotta look it up because I'm curious.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I just got real curious.
Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. Oh, it averaged 7.67. Me and Julia scored it high. I think Tom was the downer on that episode.
Wow. Okay.
Usual. But yeah, check us out, thisthepodcast.com. Tons of content on there. We've been doing it. We're in year 4 now.
Wow.
And
how many episodes?
We're nearing 200.
Nice.
And you will get 1 episode per week the week of Christmas. So 1 episode every day the week of Christmas. So
here's my pledge to you, Anthony. I've never listened to an episode of your show, and the reason is you guys have long episodes, and I have like podcast ADD, and I'd like to finish and start and finish an episode like in one sitting, and I've never found anything really long enough to do it. But because we did this tonight, I am going to immediately go upstairs and I'm going to check out your episode on Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. Listen to it in its entirety. So that's my pledge to you.
Let us know what you think in the Discord once you listen to it.
Right on. Well, on that note, I will end it by saying I believe in miracles, and I can tell you why. Once a year, the street I live on sparkles like the sky, all hung with lights for Christmas, twinkling everywhere. The world turns bright for Christmas. And if that isn't a true blue miracle, I don't know what one is.
I don't know what one is.
So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like you can keep Christmas with you all through the year, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.